Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. My name is Will Faulkner. I'm a photographer based in Melbourne, Australia, and today we are in day 4 of a 5-day lockdown. This is our 3rd lockdown in Melbourne, Victoria. So I thought I'd make a video for you guys today on this Blurb photography book that just arrived. Now, this is a book I printed with Blurb. It's a collection of my best street photography of 2020, and I'm not here to pitch that book to you today, although it is for sale on my website. That's not why I'm here today. I'm here today to unbox it in front of you, and we'll see how this book has turned out. It's the first time I've used the Blurb system, and look, the Blurb system has its pros and cons. One of the main benefits, as I see it, is it's basically a print on demand or a small quantity print system, so you don't need to run off 1,000 copies. Recently, last year, I ran off 1,000 copies out of China of a 60-page book, and that cost me a hell of a lot of money. This book I was able to get delivered for 21 Australian dollars, delivered to my door yesterday, and it took about I think about a week to arrive from the moment I ordered it. And I'll unbox it in front of you guys today, and you can tell me what you think in the comments below. So let's get to it. I've set up the overhead camera here so you guys can see. Now, it comes in a nice box. It's quite well laid out. Decent packaging, I would say. We've got here a invoice. Says actually this is not an invoice, it's just a order receipt. Okay, that's fine. Now, as for the book itself, I chose to go with what's called a trade book. Now, I wanted to make something, you can see it's soft cover, I wanted to make something that was affordable for people to buy on my website, so I tried to keep the costs as low as possible. This is, I think, the second cheapest option that Blurb have. The only cheaper option is below this is what's called a notebook format, which is smaller. I think it's a 6x8 format, if I'm not mistaken. This is an 8x10, and it's a soft cover book with 36 pages. Okay, so I'll take you through it from the start to the finish. You design this all yourself, and you design it with the Bookwrite software, and the Bookwrite software is a proprietary software that you can download from the Blurb website, and I found that software very easy to use and very user-friendly, and it's downloadable for Mac and for Windows. So I downloaded it onto my Mac, it installed seamlessly, and it's just a drag and drop software, and it's basically one of those kind of design softwares that are they snap to a grid, so you can just drop your pictures, they snap to the center and they snap to the edges, and away you go. Okay, so I've installed I chose to have a blank page at the start and then a little bit of an intro. You can read the intro there if you like. I won't read it out for you. And then I've got a collection of my best street photography images. I'll go through my thoughts on these images one by one, and I'll also give you my feedback on the paper. Now, this first image is an image I shot at the local train station, and I was just walking by with my camera doing a street photography walk, and I snapped this image, and most people that have looked at this have sort of gone, okay, what's special about that? But it's not a child touching on his Mikey pass onto the reader there. It's actually a midget. I'm not sure if that's the politically correct word, but it's a short person, a midget person, and I thought that was very interesting. So it's only when you look and you find the bald spot that you go, hang on, that's not a child. It's actually the person's got thinning hair. So then you go, oh, it's actually a short person. Okay, that's quite interesting. So it's got another level to the photo. And next we have these row of houses here, and I was just walking along, and it was a hot day. There's kind of a bleached white sky there that was pure blue obviously on the day, and all these little terrace houses were all lined up, and that's kind of a throwback now. you don't see that all too often. Usually there's a modern house spliced in between, or a block of apartments. And I thought this was quite cute, these kind of the symmetry and the geometry of these houses, and I love the way it's a diagonal off into the distance there with the power lines coming through. It just sort of spoke to me as a the geometry of the image really spoke to me in that moment. Now, the quality of this paper, I have to say I'm not that impressed with the quality of the Blurb paper, and there are printing errors. You can see an error here. If you look closely, there's a bit of a fold. It appears to me that the cover is nice, okay, the cover's nice, it's got a bit of a sheen to it, but this 8x10 trade book with the basic black and white paper that they offer, it appears that it's kind of spat off the machine in a bit of a hurry, and I'm not that impressed. But saying that, this is a street photography book, and you know, it is what it is. It's a street photography book. It's designed to be kind of a coffee table thing. You throw on the coffee table, you read it, you digest it, you throw it back, and you go about your day. It's not designed to be fine art. So you could argue that these little creases and imperfections give the book character. So moving on to the next image. Again, these are two images shot in the same location. This one on the left is looking down from the car park roof, and this one on the right is looking up at the car park roof from down here. And I just love the lines in this image. I love the way this line intersects on the 1/3, the rule of thirds there, and you've got the subject here walking through with a perfect shadowed reflection below, and you've got this diagonal line cutting through. There's all these lines that I just waited for someone to come through and just fill in this void right here, and I waited and waited there for about, I think it was 15 or 20 minutes, and I took a bunch of shots, and this was the best one. And it's not, you know, it's not an overly complicated street photography image, but again, it just spoke to me, and I thought it was worthy of putting in my collection for 2020. And this one over here, this is sort of a throwback to, or an homage to, the great photographers of the past, where they would shoot these images. A lot of the great street photographers would shoot these images where the subject is right up close to the edge of the image, and you would say, well, why is that up so close? Why didn't you put the birds down there, or on the rule of thirds, or why didn't you frame it more traditionally? And I quite like the fact that you've got this line right up there, and then the dot, 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 these birds in uniform there, and the palm tree breaking up the negative space right there. I quite like it. I think it sits particularly well on a black background as well. And again, on this page you can see that there's an imperfection in the print. Okay, you can see that fold there. So you know, you get what you pay for. It's a $21 book delivered to my door. And again, it's delivered to anyone's door. They're drop shipped to the address of whoever orders them. So, you know, it's a pretty decent system. I'm not going to complain for 21 Australian dollars for an 8x10, 36-page black and white book. This photograph here was taken during lockdown, and I was doing these photography walks where I would walk along the streets, all the popular streets, the shopping streets here, and I would see some pretty sad images of all the shops locked down, and some of them had, you know, messages to the government on their windows, and they were pretty pissed off, to put it mildly. But this one here of a popular restaurant in Toorak called Francois with Unlock Hospitality Now, and these were posters that were handed out, and you'll see them everywhere on the windows during lockdown, and that's something that over time that'll pass, and we'll look back at this image right here in this book and go, oh, remember all those posters? They were everywhere. All the shops had these Unlock Hospitality Now posters. I mean, the hospitality was hit very hard. They couldn't trade. They laid off all their staff. They were doing takeaway only. They had sort of outdoor seating. That's now been banned. People can't seat outdoors at all now during the latest lockdown. So it's really been tough on the hospitality industry. And as an ex-chef myself, I was a chef for the first 13 years of my working life, and hospitality, they do it tough at the best of times, but throw in a pandemic and the government shutting them down periodically, and those guys really did it tough this year. And this one of Frida with the classic eyebrows with the semi-mono brow in the middle, was a painting inside the window of a shop, and I saw the reflection. I just loved the eyes, and this person walking through. I waited for someone to fill in this little bit of space on the reflection of the window there. And again, this guy jogging with a mask on during the pandemic of 2020. He's jogging along and he's looking me straight in the eyes, as if to say, "What are you photographing? I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm allowed to jog along here. Stop photographing me." You know, I saw all these people jogging, some with masks and some not, and this guy, I just waited and waited, and I sort of took a sniper shot of him, and it worked out quite well. And this one on the left, this bit of street art here that says "Our heart is still beating," with the heart symbol there, and there's a woman walking along, and to me, you know, she's walking past this poster, and she looked particularly sad and broken and beaten down and just generally tired of lockdown. And I waited there and waited there. I sort of sat on the footpath there in all the filth on the footpath, and I waited and waited for about 15 minutes until someone that suited this frame walked through the composition. And this one, look, there's no double meanings to these. I just found these guys cute. I mean, I really try and take street photography that has at least two meanings, at least a bit of depth in the image. Like this has a message to the image, this has a message to the image, but this one is just, I just found these guys really cute. And I'll tell you why, is because when I was a kid, one of the first toys I ever had was one of these Japanese robots, and they're highly collectible now. This is a little tiny one, a little 1950s tin toy, but the one I had was sort of a 1970s one where you could put batteries in it, and it would blast up and down the hallway, and I think my parents must have been quite sick and tired of it, but I loved it to death. And when I see these little 1950s toy robots, I have to photograph them. And I saw this little Japanese model, little figurine, a bit further down in the same street, and I just thought it sat well with the Japanese toy manufacturer here and here. I thought it sat quite well together in the book. Again, we've got a bit of an imperfection here in this page. You can see the crease line there, and it doesn't quite, it's got a bit of a fold here. You can see the sharp edge there. So again, it's a bit of character to the book, but if that's of concern to you, you might choose to do one of their more higher priced books like the square book or the hardcover books. But again, look, this is a street photography publication. You'd call it a magazine, I suppose, even though they call it a trade book. This one here, this photograph here of the mother and the child, two children, sorry, and the baby here looking out into the distance, and they're waiting for the train to come. And I found this extremely enjoyable, this scene as it unfolded before me. The kids, you know, they heard the train coming, they heard the rumble of the tracks and maybe the toot of the train horn, and they said, "Oh, let's look at the train, look at the train." And I think that's a particularly beautiful time in a child's life, when, or in a human's life, when we're still enjoying the pure bliss of a train going by. And kids are just enthralled by that. I know I was, and look, I still am. I still enjoy watching trains go by. I still catch the train as often as I can. I thoroughly enjoy catching trains. But this is just one of those golden moments that you know, the kids watching the train go by. I just had to photograph, and I love the way that the 2 points of interest line up on the rule of thirds there, and this is symmetrical across the middle, and it kind of just sits quite well. It's quite neatly organised. This photograph here, again, it's an exercise in geometry. The larger image of this that's not cropped for this book actually has the city in the middle, and you can see the reflections of the city, and the swans and the necks of the swans actually make a mirror image of the city there. I've adjusted that and cropped it a bit to fit into this book, but I still think it works quite well. You've got this section here, this section here, and this section here, and it, for me, it's just a great image. You've got the cygnets here. Cygnets are baby swans. If you didn't know what that word meant, I'll just throw in a bit of free education there. They hatch here in Melbourne around autumn and winter, I think they hatch, and we have cygnets down at Albert Park Lake. And I love the way that the the city is a reflection of the swans next there, the city buildings, and of course the kids feeding them, and it's just another beautiful image, and it sits well, I think, next door to this beautiful image here of the kids. The kids enjoying themselves in both images, I think, sits quite well together. Another two images that sit quite well together for this book is no mask, no entry, and we saw this everywhere in 2020 in all the cafes and train stations and whatnot. No mask, no entry. This is actually on a building site, and then there was this line of text on a construction site, which was "What's next?" and it's in front of a housing commission, a government housing commission tower, and these towers were locked down for 2 weeks. They were basically locked down as prisons. The people in Flemington in Melbourne here who reside in these government towers were locked in because they had an outbreak or a suspected outbreak, and there was people complaining they didn't have fresh air, didn't have food, didn't have basic human rights when they were locked in there, and there was bands of police outside them forbidding people from getting food, and they had to have food delivered via charities. There was all this upset. People were upset that they weren't getting food for their particular religious beliefs and so forth, and it was really a really stressful time in Melbourne. And I think, you know, it sits well next to here where it says no mask, no entry. We see the government block of flats there, and what's next? I mean, what's next as we go forward into the next decade? Are we going to have pandemic after pandemic? I mean, you know, what human rights are going to be stripped away from us next to protect the greater community? And this one here, I'm not generally a fan of photographing other people's art, and this is someone's art, and I think it's a pretty cheap effort if you just go around photographing art. But I just think this sits well. It's, you know, the famous image of God reaching down and touching man, and usually the fingers are touching, but here they've got the 1.5 metre social distancing with hashtag physical distancing, and this was shot in South Melbourne, Victoria, so full credit to the artist there, and you can see their social handles down here. I think that was a great image, and it deserved to be in the book for 2020 because it just captures the pandemic, the feeling of the pandemic and lockdowns. And this is probably, I think, possibly my favourite image in the book is these naked mannequins, and these are headless naked mannequins, and we saw these in all the shops. So after retail was shut down and told that it wasn't going to open for a period of months, the clothing shops took off all the clothes, and I guess they put them into storage, or they tried to sell them, or I'm not 100% sure why they took off all the clothes, but there was all these shops with all these naked mannequins, and I've never seen it before in my life. And it was shop after shop after shop, there was all these naked mannequins. And this shop, I just love the way they're all standing there going, oh well, look, let's just wait naked, stand here patiently and wait naked until the shop's open. I think particularly down, we have a street here called Bridge Road, and Bridge Road is kind of a decaying street that was once a thriving place to buy all your clothes. It has all the discount clothing outlets, and all the shops there had all these naked mannequins in the windows. And you know, if people were to look at that, they would say, well, why have you got all these naked mannequins as a photograph in your book? Once I explain it, they sort of go, oh yeah, I remember that time. They were everywhere. All the shops had naked mannequins. So again, although it needs a bit of narration and explaining, it's a moment in time that perhaps may not be repeated, and I thought it was worthy of going into this book. And this one here, we've got this downpour in De Grave Street in Melbourne, which is a cafe lane in the city, in the CBD, Central Business District. And there's a downpour. You can't really make it out so well in black and white. You kind of lose a bit of the tonality when it's in monochrome, but the rain is pouring down it's hitting the awning, pouring down. There's not a soul anywhere, and the tables and chairs are all there, but if you look closely, there's a woman who is standing here with her hands folded, and she's just waiting for one customer to come through. And you know, if lockdown wasn't hard enough, and if masks weren't hard enough to attract customers, then it started pouring rain, and there was just not a soul in the city. There was no one, and there was just one poor cafe worker woman standing there waiting for a potential customer to walk through. And as I walked by, I said hello, and she replied, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And I think that broke up her day. Someone actually said hello to her. And this image here, this image is quite interesting, the way this played out. This is, if you look closely, you've got a cockatoo sitting on a traffic light, looking down at a dog in the back of a car, and the car has got a license plate 20002. So two things happening, the number 2 and the license plate. And it happened so fast. I pulled out the camera, I shot this through the windscreen of my car, and the light is already green. You can see the arrow there. We're already moving. This car is already going, and I'm trying to get this shot off as quick as I can and in focus nonetheless, before the moment disappeared, and I just grabbed it. And I think it's one of those street photography great photos that other people may not enjoy, but I really enjoy it because it's just got the uniqueness of this bird looking down, and the number 2 on the license plate and the 2 subject matters. I think that's really just such a great capture in time. Now again, and back to I don't agree with photographing street art, but these 2 images were shot in the same location. And if you've watched my point of view street photography videos on my YouTube channel, you'll see me actually shooting these 2 images in one of the videos. And Zuckerberg is watching you, and you know, Facebook is getting more of a reputation as a data mining program or app than anything else. I mean, it really is. People are getting more and more skeptical of Facebook. Just think that's an interesting commentary by this graffiti artist on what's happening with Facebook right now, and other platforms as well. And this guy, Bart Simpson, with, you know, his classic saying was "ay caramba," but here we've got "ay corona," and it just spoke to me. I just had to put it in there. I was a huge Simpsons fan when it first started airing, I think back in the 90s, and you know, it's still going. I think it's lost a bit of its flavour these days, The Simpsons, but it's still going. These days I'd be more of a Family Guy type of person. This shot here, everyone in Melbourne would know where this is. This is at the NGV, the National Gallery of Victoria, looking out towards the street from inside the gallery, and you've got the kids who rush up to the water wall, and there's water that pours down a pane of glass, and all the kids rush up there. And I've taken multiple images of young kids. It's kind of in an impressionist style. They're all blurred because of the water, obviously, and if you wait long enough, you can get a really beautiful image there. But look, you've got to try to avoid looking like some sort of paedophile standing there photographing kids with a camera, so don't linger about too long, otherwise the public are going to ask pretty disturbing questions. What are you doing there? But if you're quick enough, and if you're lucky enough, you can grab some beautiful impressionist style images. This reminds me of a Monet painting. It really does. It's beautiful. And here, no one is lonely while eating spaghetti. It just was funny, and I just thought it was great, and it was a bit of lightheartedness. This was a little box sign, an illuminated sign in a cafe. The cafe was closed, and before they'd closed up and turned off the lights and gone home for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, they just put that there in the window, and I thought that was, you know, good on them for having a bit of lightheartedness for the situation. This one here, I've shown this image to a few people on my computer and asked them to interpret, what is this man thinking? What is his emotion? Is it despair, loneliness, disappointment? And no one can come to a unanimous vote as to what it is, or even a common vote. To me, he's looking off into the distance, and he's sort of thinking, well, how the hell did I end up in this position? I'm on a bicycle, I'm 55, 65 years old. How did I get here? And he's just looking a bit sort of like, oh, look, I don't know, I'll just keep trudging away and hopefully life will get better. I just think it's an interesting moment in time. And over here we have Marilyn, and whenever I see an image of Marilyn as street art or as a poster in the street. I have to photograph it. And this one was shot in the rain, and here I am with my clear umbrella, which I use for street photography, and I'm shooting, and I chose to include myself in the image in that one just as a bit of a semi self-portrait. So yeah, it's an interesting image. I like the way that again, it's kind of an impressionist blurred picture of Marilyn. I would have wished that Blurb had have given a bit more contrast to this book. I think the blacks are a bit light on. So they promote this type of page as good for all imagery on their website, but I would suggest that the contrast could be increased a lot, because this paper is quite matte and it tends to soak up a lot of the blacks and whites, therefore reducing the contrast of your images. So just be careful of that. You may want to up the contrast of your images before you commit to this particular trade book, they call it. And again, if you look at this one, I've shown people this and they go, what, free Wi-Fi? And I go, no, look at it again. Oh, free Wi-Fi. So I think that's funny that it's a street photography image that you have to look at twice to get the meaning, and that's what I always aim for, is a photo that's got a bit of depth, a photo that makes you look at it more than once, and it captures your attention for perhaps more than 3 seconds at a time. So again, this was in a cafe in Chapel Street in Melbourne, and I thought that was interesting that they put that there, free Wi-Fi. This one on the left, on the right, sorry, is one of those photo booths that you can churn out these strips of Polaroid images, and these were everywhere before mobile phones. These were everywhere, and this is a particular photo booth that has been there for as long as I can remember. I think more than 30 years in Melbourne. And it was interesting. I just thought it was interesting that people were still using this. It's obviously still getting some use, otherwise it wouldn't be there in the street. And you put your $2 in and you get a strip of photos. But these days, with cell phones and everyone taking selfies on Instagram, I'm really surprised that this is still getting use. And I thought it was interesting to photograph the faces on the wall there. It's not the deepest image, like it doesn't have a granular depth to the context of the image, but you know, with my street photography, I'm trying to push my street photography where it's getting deeper and deeper. There's more layers to my images, and although this is not a great one, I feel it's getting there. It's getting there. So some of the images here, like the cockatoo and the mannequins, I'm happy with, but these other ones are like, okay, it's getting there. Just put it in a book, but try harder next time. So look, you've just got to keep trying. And this one, the teddy bear wedged into a lamp above an electricity meter on the front porch of a home. We had this unique trend that developed during lockdown, where when kids would go for a walk with their mum during the 1 hour of outdoor exercise allowed, they would try to spot teddy bears in windows, and then you could hashtag teddy bear and go onto social media and tag the location and so forth. And it was a bit of a game that kids were playing, and these teddy bears started popping up everywhere. So again, if you look at this book in 5 years time, 10 years time, and you see this teddy bear, you'll remember, oh yeah, there was that teddy bear trend that everyone was photographing teddy bears, and it was quite cute. And this one here, I can never walk past these little hula girls without photographing them. I probably should have put this one next to the robot before, or next to the little Japanese flute girl next to the robot before, but it was just so cute. I couldn't walk by it. It's a tiny little statue figurine, one of those wobbly ones that wobbles when your car moves. So quite cute. I think it sits well next to the teddy bear. A bit of lightheartedness in a book about a year of lockdown, a year of pandemic. And finally, this last image is a shot that's particularly Australian. So it's the shot of a magpie which I've trained to eat biscuits out of my hand at my back door here. Now, we've got three particularly Australian things here. We've got magpies and we've got Savoy biscuits, which is a dry biscuit that we've had here for decades and decades. And we've got the Hills Hoist clothesline, which, if you look carefully, is in the background. And this particular image has those three things. It's got the magpie, the Savoy biscuit, and the Hills Hoist. So all Australian people will know what those three things are. And I was able to finally line up this shot and take a shot with my trained magpie. I thought it was worth including in the book. So look, that's it guys. They come with a ISBN, a free ISBN, which is really handy as well. So I think the Blurb book is worth doing, particularly if you want to get your work out there and start to be seen. This is something you can send off to potential clients, maybe put a collection of your best work in and send it off to your photography clients, and they will then call you and give you some more work, hopefully. It is worth doing, I think, and particularly that once you print your work, this will live in my home forever, and my kids will look at this down the track, and this will be a snapshot in times. But you know, with digital, you take a shot and it's gone. You look at it for a fleeting moment, then it's gone, and eventually you delete all your photographs, or you lose your phone, or they all get removed from the cloud. But with print, they really stay with you forever. Now, I'm always looking at my old family photographs, and I'm eternally grateful that my grandfather, my grandmother, my father, my mother, they printed images that I can look at now, and I think we should continue doing that. So I think it's really important to start printing your images. One of the things that my wife and I have started doing is just dropping into the print center, and for 10 cents for a 6x4 image, we can print straight from our phone. And we've just started printing off random moments in time that would usually be on our phone and then deleted. But we've printed them, we're keeping them in a family photo album, and that's getting fuller and fuller, and it's been a great thing to do, and I think our kids will thank us for that down the track. So that's it guys, that's my review of Blurb, and I think it is worth doing. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to address them. I try to answer every comment that is left there. And yeah, stay safe in your country, and good luck for everyone to survive the current pandemic. Stay safe. Bye.